everyone, are you ready for another adventure? It's me, Woki, and I'm back with another Fate Grand Order video. And what are we going to be talking about today? Well, we got an upcoming banner for the Count of Monte Cristo, so it's time to go over his banner, which features him and another new SR unit coming to the game, which is Alessandro di Cagliostro. So I'm just gonna do a video where I go over both of them. Sounds simple enough, it sounds easy enough. That's gonna be today's video. I hope you like it. If you do, feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me if you are planning to summon. I'm planning to summon. Or if you're continuing to save and you just wanted to stop by to hear me talk for a bit. Thank you very much. But also tell me what you're saving for, I guess. I assume most people are probably your collab or anniversary, but who knows? Maybe there's someone out there even saving for even longer. You never know. And now, let's get into the video, shall we? So, when is the banner coming? So, we're gonna need to quickly take a look over here. As you can see here, this says March 11th, but it's weird because, technically speaking, I think it starts the 10th. So, if I'm right, it should start on March 17th, which is a week from when this banner released. I know it's really weird because for me, this started on the 11th, but that's only because maintenance ended on the 11th. And that's why it would be there. So I'm pretty sure it's coming on the 17th, and if it's not here on the 17th, it will likely be here on the 18th, or who even knows, depending on your time zone. Those could be a little bit tricky. For some people, it might not even be for another entire day, but either way, it's coming up real close. And like I said beforehand, the banner features the same things as always, which is new permanent craft essence that are not on rate up, or the same 3 that have been there the entire time. And this time the Count of Monte Cristo and Alessandro di Cagliostro are on it. So we're going to start with Cagliostro over here. And also I'm just going to say, forgive me for saying this name. I'm not the greatest at saying these types of names, but I'm going to be doing my best. Oh, wait a minute. Let me quickly pause real quick. Okay, that should be good enough that you can't see it. There is maybe a potential spoiler that for some reason wasn't like being hidden, so I think it should be fine from here. But either way, let's continue. He is from the story, so if I'm trying to look out for you if you're someone who has not yet caught up to the story and you're going through it. But anyway, Alessandro di Cagliostro, he is a pretender. He has 1 quick, 3 arts, and 1 buster. 5 hits on quick, 3 hits on arts, 4 hits on buster, and 5 hits on extra. His first skill is for I am as Shara EX, charges on MP gauge, increases on MP damage for 3 turns, inflicts confusion status for 3 turns to all enemies, 30% chance to activate the debuff below every turn. When activated, a 500% chance to seal their skills for 1 turn. At level 10, you get it's a 50% NP charger with 30% NP damage being increased, and this is on a cooldown of 7. His second skill is Althatus Continuum C. Grant self the gut status for 1 time 5 turns. Grant self the on guts activated buff for 1 time 5 turns. Charges own NP gauge by 30% when gut status is activated, and then increase own NP generation rate for 5 turns. He heals 10,000 HP at skill level 10, and the MP rate up is 30% on a cooldown of 10. Its third skill is the Oriental Martial Artist A+, which is a hell of a skill name. Is there anyone else that has this skill other than this man? It is only him. Okay. Anyway, increases on arts performance for 3 turns, increases on critical damage for 3 turns, grants self a debuff and attack buff for 3 turns, and inflicts received butt success rate down by 10% for 1 turn to enemies when normal attacking. The arts increase is 30% at level 10, and then the crit damage is also 30% at level 10, and this is on a cooldown of 6. His passive skills are Diversionary Disguise EX, increases on critical star generation rate of arts cards by 30%, and then also increases own debuff resistance by 10%. The Matter Casting False EX, and increased own debuff success rate by 10%, and increased own buff removal resistance by 10%. And then the Hero's Arch Enemy False E++, it increased own critical damage of arts cards by 10%. And I had to mention what all of those did because I think he's one of the very few units that I can think of that all of these are like specific to him, I think. His third append skill is an anti-Avenger attack damage aptitude, and his noble phantasm is Rebellion Almondo. Sure. In death comes order, in chaos comes the new world, a rank EX noble phantasm that is anti-city / chaotic. hits 4 times. Its arts, like I think I mentioned beforehand. It removes all enemies' defensive buffs. This activates first and then deals damage to them and then reduces their defense by 20% for 3 turns. MP level 1, it's 450% damage, and then if you get them all the way to MP level 5, it's 750%. The overcharge effect is deal an extra damage against enemies with the lawful alignment. At charge level 1, it's 150%, and if you get them all the way to the final charge level, it's 200%. And finally, his bond CE is the Queen's Necklace. When it's on Alessandro di Cagliostro, increases party's damage against enemies of the lawful alignment by 20% while he is on the field. And that is our guy here. So, how do I end up feeling about him? Make sure not to go all the way to the top here when I go here. Okay, well, right here. So he has some nice stuff to him. Obviously, I do, anyone that has a 50% NP charger, I think is pretty damn good, especially if you are a newer player. Though I think a little bit of the, a little bit of that gets offset by the fact that he is from the most recent, chapter. So a lot of his final ascensions use new items, and so do his ascensions, which are also, oh my god, looking at this makes me go, damn, that would be really rough if I was just starting the game. But either way, a 50% NP charger is always good in my eyes. He has the way to give himself a lot of NP generation rate, and given that he is an arch unit, that's going to be a decent bit of it here. He has a gut stuff in case you want to try and use him in a kind of like challenge quest type fight where you're fighting against lawful alignment dudes. And then he can also remove all enemy defensive buffs, which activates first, which again can be handy in certain challenge quests where it's just really annoying how much defensive buffs they stack. I can remember one exactly where it was like they just kept stacking defensive buffs randomly every turn, and it's like, okay, well, you're just not going to be able to deal any damage for the next 9 turns. So he'd be useful in those kind of scenarios, especially because they would also hit all of them all at once. And yeah, that's basically it. I think he ends up being kind of an okay unit overall, just because I don't really see much that is jumping out at me that says like, oh no, this is amazing. The one thing that I will say is that he is a pretender, which means that in certain quests where they have funky dudes in them, this is true for all pretenders, by the way, it's not just him, it's something that's shared throughout the class, and this is true for alter egos as well. If you're in a, like, let's say a very like a 90++ node and you're farming, I don't think this applies to the most recent one because it was actually able to stay all in theme on that one. But let's say for whatever reason they decide to have a mix of people at the end, then he just becomes basically useless at that point, and you're not able to farm it all effectively because you need him to all kind of be of one type, but because of the mixing and matching, it can be a little bit awkward for him. I guess something else is that I feel like he probably, that's a thing of like, you would need a lot of power. I also feel like he might be just a little bit, he needs like a little bit more power, because I feel that if you're going against lawful alignment people, I think you're going to be perfectly fine, because especially with arts, you're able to stack this up pretty easily. But if you're not, only having like a 30% to arts and basically, and and some MP damage as well, 30% of there, it's okay, but it's nothing like too crazy for a unit that could also potentially have some rough matchups and stuff like that. But yeah, if you end up getting him, the other thing that's I guess kind of note is if you're a fan of him and you like him, it's also going to be a little bit rough to get up coins for him, just because he is story locked. Like, I don't think I mentioned that at the beginning, but I can mention it now just because I'm afraid of going up there and accidentally showing you something you probably shouldn't see. But he is story locked, so that means it's going to be very hard to get additional medals for him. That would be a little bit rough. But yeah, that's Alessandro di Cagliostro, and now we're going to move on, and I can stop potentially butchering the man's name. And we'll move over to the Count of Monte Cristo, also known as the King of the Cavern. He is a limited Avenger. If you cannot tell, he looks like a certain person that is already in the game. He has 2 quicks, 1 arts, 2 buster, 5 hits on quick, 3 hits on arts, 4 hits on buster, and 5 hits on extra. His active skills are Determination of the Steel Flame EX, increase to own quick performance for 3 turns, increase to own buster performance for 3 turns, and then grant self invincibility for 2 attacks over 3 turns. 30% to quick, 30% to buster, and this is on a 6-turn cooldown. His second skill is the Monte Cristo mythology. mythology. I think that's mythology. That's not mythology. I'm gonna move on. The King of the Cavern Sea increases own attack for 3 turns. Grants self a debuff on attack buff for 3 turns. Inflicts burn with 500%. No, not 5. Inflicts burn with 500 damage for 3 turns to enemies when attacking. Grants self the poison debuff immunity for 3 turns, and then grants self the debuff immunity for 3 times over 3 turns. This is at level 10, you get 30% to attack, and this is on a cooldown of 6. His third skill is a Jewel of 14A. Charges his own NP gauge, increases his own critical damage for 3 turns, and then increases his own critical star absorption for 3 turns. It's a 50% NP charger, 50% to crit damage, and 1000 to absorption. And then we have his passive skills, which are Avenger B+, Oblivion Correction C, and then Self-Replenishment Magic D. His third skill is an anti-Avenger attack damage aptitude, because trust no one, not even yourself. And his noble phantasm is the Paradis Chateau d'If. O stars conquer the path towards brilliance. It's a rank A anti-unit quick noble phantasm that hits 10 times. Ignores invincibility for 1 turn, this activates first. A 500% chance to stun them for 1 turn, this activates first. It deals damage to 1 enemy, and then it deals 100% plus 10% and extra damage to enemies with the burn status on enemy burn stack, max 10 stacks. And then a 500% chance to inflict burn with 500 damage for 3 turns to self. This is a demerit. At MP level 1, it's 1,200. If you get him all the way to MP level 5, it's 2,000. And then his overcharge effect is reduce their defense for 3 turns. At charge level 1, it's 10%. And if you get him all the way to the final charge level, it's 30%. And then we go over here to his Bonsi, which is the Jewel of the 14. When equipped to the Count of Monte Cristo, it increases party's damage against enemies with the burn status by 20% while self is on the field. And that is the Count. So, how do I feel about the Count? Well, I like him. So to go over some of the things I like that he has a 50% NP charger. Obviously 50% is good on any unit, but especially on a quick unit, it's really handy because a lot of them can have a little bit of a problem with NP generation, and just in general, 50% is a pretty good solid amount to give to any unit. It also increases his crit damage and gives him some absorption as well. His first skill is a little bit of a breakdown of Quick and Buster, which is also nice because he has 2 Quicks and 2 Busters, which means he can work really well with Summer Scotty, who gives a lot of buffs to Buster itself, and especially being a quick unit, you'll be getting a lot of crit stars, and you'll really be taking advantage of that 100% to Buster crit damage on him. Also gives himself a granting of invincibility for 2 attacks for 3 turns. I really like this form of invincibility, where you can kind of store it if they don't hit you. So over 3 turns, you'll be able to, if they for whatever reason don't choose to hit you and hit someone else, it is nice to know that your invincibility will at least last for the entire 3 turns if they are not hitting you, which can feel pretty bad when you use like an invincibility and then they don't hit you for whatever reason. So I like that. The second skill is also really nice, the ability to give yourself a debuff that will let you inflict burn, which is your only way to inflict burn, which maybe is something to talk about a little bit later when I talk about some of the things that I maybe don't like about him. An increased own attack for 3 turns is always good, and then being able to be poison debuff and debuff immunity is also really good for 3 times over 3 turns, especially because I feel like you want to be using him in challenge quests, and in a lot of challenge quests sometimes some random debuff will just be their main gimmick, and so that way you can kind of stop them. Though we need to talk a little bit about this a little bit more as we go over to his Noble Phantasm. A lot of the stuff I like here is obvious. As someone who's used a lot of the Lancer Skahawk, the ability to be able to stun someone is really nice as a handy tool. I can't tell you how many times she's able to save my ass by just stunning the enemy when I wasn't expecting her to. So I like this. The ability to always be piercing is also good because, like I said, some challenge quests out there are just like, no, I'm just gonna always have invincibility up and just not having to even apply it with a skill, just be like, no, I'm using my Noble Phantasm now, I'm ignoring invincibility for this entire turn, and that includes the attacks that I'm gonna be doing afterwards. Really key, really nice. The way that you can, if you stack up enough burn really quickly early on, you can just hit for a lot of extra damage at the beginning, which is really good. Now we go into a little, and obviously reducing defense is always good. That's 10% is a little bit of a little amount, and it kind of sucks that it doesn't go activate first, but okay. Now to talk about some negatives with that, using as a segue of saying it, this not activating first and only giving 10% on charge 1 is a little bit for a quick unit. I would understand it a little bit more if he was an arts unit and you could easily get those overcharge effects, but he's not, so it's a little bit weird to me, especially for just, come on, it's 10%. This ability here about burn status can be a little bit of a problem if they are burn immune. Which obviously you would then say to me, why would I ever use a unit that was burn focused on a boss that was burn immune? You're right, but at the same time, it is something to say, like, if you wanted to use them in that scenario, you'd have to go, ah, damn, I literally can't because the extra damage, I'm not going to be able to pull it. Who knows, maybe yours is NP5 and you can compensate for it, but it still kind of sucks that his one main gimmick gets locked away in that kind of instance. And to be fair, I feel the same way about this for any unit that says, I inflict extra damage based off of status. It kind of sucks when they are immune to statuses and you don't get that ability. Now, this ability here is in Magic the Gathering, there's a term called a non-bow, which is usually when you use 2 cards that basically have anti-synergy with themselves. He kind of non-bows with his second skill here, which is the grant self debuff immunity for 3 times over 3 turns. When you use this, you would assume your opponent would be inflicting that debuff immunity to you. But no, the first count is actually going to be coming from yourself because you're going to give yourself burn. And then your opponent will then have a chance, and then maybe they go for a debuff, and then that debuff takes away your debuff immunity. But typically when you're on the first, second, and third turn, you're kind of always hitting with your Noble Phantasm, or trying to, at the very least. So if you go to hit with your Noble Phantasm again, guess what? Your debuff immunity is now gone, and you use 2 of them on yourself, which is a little bit, you know, like I said, it feels like a non-bow. It's anti-synergy. I wish there was a way, maybe when they buff him later, to get rid of. I'm pretty sure the only reason they gave him this burn thing to himself as a way to, like, it's for lore reasons more than like actual gameplay reasons, which I understand. But the way that these kind of synergize with each other, I'm not the biggest fan of. Just because it's like, it reads as, oh yeah, over 3 enemies, right? Like, no, realistically, 1. And even then, maybe occasionally you'll just use your Noble Phantasm 3 times in a row, and then boom, congratulations, you stopped yourself 3 times, and then on the 4th turn, your opponent decided to use a debuff on you that, like, cripples your team or something. Who knows? All theoretical at this point, though, to be fair with you. And then the other thing is, I guess, a tiny one, but I'll say that it's not that big of a deal as someone who also uses another unit that kind of deals with this. The ability here where you don't really give yourself burn until after you attack with this 3rd skill. There's no way for him to apply burn other than this 2nd skill, and that can kind of feel a little bit bad. I will say that there is Jan Gafoy has a similar gimmick related to burn, and she kind of has a move like this too, where you have to kind of attack first and then use your Noble Phantasm. So I know that it's not like an actual deal breaker, but it is something that's a little bit like, you have to remember that when you're using the unit itself. It's not like, I guess it's also good that there isn't a unit that's just so brain dead that you don't really have to think about doing anything. You have to put a little bit of thought into it, which, you know, fair enough at that point. That is something that maybe makes a unit more interesting to kind of play with, as opposed to a unit that just wins everything. Everyone loves those cards that are like fake Yu-Gi-Oh cards that are like, oh yeah, I'm Exodia full body, I'm a 20-star monster that when they hit the field, I instantly win no matter what. Which is funny to think about, and if you tried using it, you're like, oh yeah, I just play this and I automatically win. Maybe it's a little bit better to have you are, at the end of the day, still playing a game. So maybe having a little bit of a balance between, like, I'm not just always OP and winning all the time, but I have to make some checks and balances, is good for it too. And again, a lot of this is talking about him doing challenge quest type scenario. If you're using him to farm, likely none of this matters to you. All you care about is whether or not you're able to kill dudes down. Which in that case, I can see this being a little bit of a problem, where you'd have to make sure you do some attacks with him first, maybe, if you want to guarantee the kill. But those are all, again, theoretical things to talk about. But yeah, that's how I feel overall about him. Again, I think he's a really good unit. I'm going to be going for him. but I'm also going for him mainly because I think he's fucking rad as hell. So now I guess I get to the point where I tell you, should you go be summoning? I think if you're someone who was already planning to summon, you should summon, obviously. The greatest thing I can say about is for the people who play this game for the love of the game, it's a little bit of a curse and it is also a little bit of a gift, because the curse is that you end up liking a lot of characters, so you end up wanting to summon for them a lot of the time. But you also don't really have to care all that much about power, because you're not in it for the power, you're here for them, which is what I'm here for. It's just a bonus for me that I think he's really good, and if I get him, then I'll be able to use him in a bunch of stuff and have fun and use him in that kind of way. But if you're someone who's a little bit like, I don't know, I'm on the fence, can you tell me a little bit more power wise? What I'll say is that quick units are maybe the hardest units to kind of just recommend outright. I feel like they're usually the units, when I talk about them, they get the most pushback of saying like, well, they're quick. I don't really play quick. I play arts, or if I play buster. Because if I want to go unga bunga big number, I go buster. And if I want to go a little bit more strategic and a little bit more thinking and or stally gameplay, then that's where I get arts. And then when you get the quick, it's like, well, what's quick? It's kind of quick is like a weird in between of both. Sometimes it feels like you can have a little bit of a stally games thanks to stuff like the Count over here having stun, but also being able to kind of have a little bit of protection from regular Scotty, and then Summer Scotty can hit NP charge, I believe, and she is also a ruler, so she is a little bit more tanky, but they definitely care more about attack, so it can be a little bit weird to just recommend quick units for people who are not prepared for them. And then the other thing is obvious is that collab and summer are coming up, and with anniversary itself not specifically around the corner, we don't have that much time until anniversary. We have April, May, June, and then right at the beginning of July is our anniversary, so you realistically have 1, 2, 3 more months, 3 more months or so, which is not a lot of saving up. And then obviously the collab itself is likely coming in like what, maybe a week or two, perhaps, if I were to guess. We should be getting the pre-release pretty soon, and then once the pre-release happens, we'll know for a fact when it's going to be coming in. But it's a lot of things to balance, and for that reason you probably continue to be saving if you are more interested in those units, or you're interested in the meta capabilities of those in there. Then it's probably better to save. But for my fellow fans of the Monte Cristo, we already know our time is now. Our time is here. Let's summon for our guy, and let's hopefully get him. So that's the end of the video. If I missed anything about any of the characters talked about, feel free to let me know down in the comments below. Leave a like, subscribe, and yeah, that's basically it. And all right, I'll see you guys in the next video, whatever it may be. Till next time, bye bye, and best of luck out there. Bye.